Ethan, you talk a little about how you met Seymour, but I wonder if you could tell us about the genesis of this as a film project. I mean, you met him at a party. Did you know at that point, I'm going to make a movie about this guy?
Absolutely not. I went home and, Googled Seymour. I was kind of obsessed. I was trying to tell my wife about this person that I met, and
But I Googled you too.
I know.
Because I didn't know who you were.
I know. So we were mutually Googling over, crossing through the internet, and one thing that had happened at the course of the evening is when I heard that Seymour hadn't played in so long in front of people, there was a piano at this person's apartment, and I was begging him to play in front of everybody, and he said that he wouldn't because of the quality of the piano, right? I mean, that was what you
Not
said.
a
How
Steinway.
fussy I am.
Yeah, I know. What was it? It wasn't a Steinway. It was a...
It was a Baldwin.
Yeah, and so he wouldn't do
I'm
it.
not against Baldwins. They were beautiful, but would have preferred to play on my own favorite piano.
Yeah. Well, that's what he said, and so he invited me to come to his house to hear him play if I really
One year
did.
later.
So 1 year later, and to be fair, I was leaving town, and there was a lot of reasons why, but 1 year later, we finally got it together, and I came over to his apartment with my then 14-year-old daughter and Andrew Harvey, another couple friends. We all met over at Seymour's house, and Seymour played for us, and it was there that I felt that I was sitting in an incredibly privileged seat. And I was really, really moved. And Andrew Harvey, who's in the movie, when we walked out, I was speaking about how moving it was, and he just kept saying, you should make a documentary about this, you should make a documentary about this. And I remember thinking, yes, somebody should. My first thought was the filmmakers that I knew who would do a good job of this, because I had no part of me thought that I could or would have any interest in doing it. But as some time went by, I started thinking about what a good idea that was and how
What was
magical
the
it would be.
original shape of how you conceived of the project?
Very much exactly what you see. I mean, the idea was a little bit, we had been emailing each other over the year, and I'd have enough contact with Seymour to, for lack of a better word, it was a little bit about what if you could do what Zen and the Art of Archery did as a piece of literature, as a piece of cinema. If you could explore, I didn't want to make a movie about Seymour was born on Wednesday. He did this on Thursday. He did that on it wasn't going to be a biography. And this is, I hope you don't mind me telling. When I told him this, that I wanted to make the documentary, he said, I can think of I forget. You can think of 1 million musicians right now that you should make a documentary
Well, I
about.
was dumbstruck because you know what Andrew said to me, that whether you want to or not, we're making a documentary on you. Well, I didn't even know what to say. Nobody ever made a movie. Do you know any movie star who's 88? I just turned 88 on Friday. So I was dumbstruck, really dumbstruck. No, but you know what I found out what you did. You had read my books.
Mm-hmm. That's what I did.
And you were struck, you told me what you were struck with. Mm-hmm. You said, quite obviously, everybody knows that life influences the way you act, right? But it never occurred to you that your acting could influence your life, like my playing influences my life.
I had never heard that before, and I spent my life around artists. I did my first movie when I was 13. I did my first professional play when I was 12. I spent my life in rooms with actors and musicians and writers, and that's what I've done. And I've seen so many people, young people, middle-aged people, older people, get lost via depression, via insecurity, via pomposity, there's so many ways to get lost. And it was really wonderful to spend time with you because you had dedicated your life to the arts and you are clearly not lost. And it felt good to be near you. And so I thought that was a pretty profound idea to make a movie about. and that if the movie could kind of be about that teaching, about life and art, and that's why it was important. I thought that Seymour actually play in the movie. You know, that it was important that you could see the integration and that it really was possible. Because being in your house, in your apartment, listening to you play is exquisite. You know, it's just incredible.
Seymour, do you recall what it was like when Ethan kind of said, we're going to make this documentary? What were your thoughts, other than there were other people more worthy of having
that's
a
exactly
filming?
what Ethan said.
Yeah.
I said, well, now why would anyone want to do that about the likes of me? I know so many more interesting musicians. But I did discover that he had read my book. He was fascinated
Both
about
of them.
the fact that when you have a passion for something and you work at it, that can integrate your personality. It's not just that life influences your passion, but your passion for an art form can influence your life.
And that may be true for any discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? I mean, one of the things that's interesting, I don't know to what it did make the final cut, but when you talked about it more, but I was always fascinated when you would do those marches and when you were in Korea and you were kind of shocked to find how disciplined your mind was and how you could do it. And
Yes, I felt that was directly related to the discipline that I learned from my art.
Mm-hmm.
You have disciplines too. Look what you have to do. I mean, you're playing Macbeth at Lincoln Center. What an overpowering responsibility. So mustering all of you, your emotional, intellectual, and physical worlds, that has to be a very powerful integration. So why leave it on the stage? You take it into your life, right?
Speaking about discipline, tell us about how you structured this. I mean, did you just begin shooting Seymour and his students and knowing that you were headed to a final performance?
You know,
or
to be totally honest with you, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I don't know if you're allowed to say that, but I'm really happy about that. And a lot of it was shot from the hip, meaning I had a gut feeling that there was a movie here, you know, and that there was something cinematic about Seymour and about this idea. But if it weren't for, Greg and some of the other, we have a wonderful editor. My wife helped produce too, and together, it was documentary is a very interesting way to work, because we would get together for a day, shoot for 8 or 9 hours, and then go back and look at it, and then think about it. And I had an idea that getting Seymour to play, I'm a member of the Labyrinth Theater Company, and I thought it might be interesting to get Seymour to play in front of, the Labyrinth isn't just actors, a lot of them are writers and dancers, and a lot of them they're very involved as in the arts as a whole thing, not just as one discipline, but there's some old saying that, to really master one art form, you need to be very good at least 3. And the Labyrinth Theater kind of plays with that idea and so I thought Seymour would be very good to speak with. That would be a right setting for who to play for, and that would integrate the story that we're telling about how music relates to other arts. What's the Mark Twain line, all art aspires to be music? Often when people are editing, they talk about the rhythm. When people speak of Shakespeare or Sam Shepard or Tennessee Williams, they talk about the rhythm or the music or the tonalities. Often those vocabulary words show up. And so it was a balance of finding out, first of all, you find out, oh, wow, Seymour and Michael Kimmelman are great friends. He used to be a student. Michael Kimmelman is a great writer. Michael Kimmelman is a serious music critic. Michael Kimmelman, I got to get the two of them talking.
And he's a brilliant pianist.
I
taught him at 5.
Well, I know it's in the movie. And I edited that scene for like 2 years.
And he didn't practice either.
But one of the things that is so, we all have, a lot of you are filmmakers, and there's always things that, I'm never sure if they move an audience, but I remember Greg and I in the editing room, when you and when Michael's playing that Mozart piece in your house and you start accompanying him, the truth is there's a much longer version of that, and if the movie could be 14 hours long, it would be in it. But it moves me to tears seeing the two of you, people that know each other intimately, and seeing them communicate with something beyond words. It's
Well, he was in his 60s, right? Michael,
is he?
isn't he? So imagine I've been teaching him from 5 to 60. I'm still teaching him.
Well, yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Of course, there's no end. Schumann is the one that said there's no end to our art.
Speaking of endings, you knew it would culminate in this concert. And Seymour, I want to ask you, you haven't performed in public in quite a while.
I want to tell you about that.
Well,
Well, now, Ethan and his wife and I had a meeting in the same room where we met at dinner. He was sitting with his wife opposite the table, and I was sitting on this end. And he was telling me more or less what the thesis would be of the movie. He wanted to show, as what I said before, how a passion for an art form can influence your life, and not just the art form. Now he pauses and he says to me, "Now, Seymour, you know I'm a member of a theater group, and now you don't have to say yes, but I have to ask you. I know you haven't performed in public for 37 years,
yes.
but would you consider giving a recital and speak about the music to the theater group? Because they don't know very much about classical music. See the color of your paper? That's the color I turned. I felt all the blood leave my face. I said, oh dear. Going back to that nightmarish situation, then, and you know how one's mind works in a flash? Maybe a couple of seconds went by, but to me it seemed like minutes. And I remember thinking, what is he asking me to do this for? I know why. He wants to avoid people pointing to the stupid old adage that those who can do and those who can't teach. Right? I thought of that immediately. And this wonderful man, I wasn't going to let him down. You know, he's going to make a documentary on me? I said, yes.